sustainable fashion. We persevere when there's a challenge ahead.
Yes.
Thank you so much for joining us.
My pleasure.
I'm going to invite Ursula in, but today's
Yes.
session is all about, I mean, look, we all know that you celebrate fashion and you know, you have a great relationship with clothes. And today's all about learning about your fashion love stories and getting a bit nostalgic and diving into our wardrobes a little bit more and discussing
Yes.
our relationships with clothes. So I'm just inviting Ursula de Castro, who is one of the co-founders of Fashion Revolution and also global creative director. While we're all waiting for that to happen, I'm going to give you a little intro in terms of why we have Fashion Revolution and why we have a Fashion Revolution week. So firstly, thank you for joining us at Fashion Revolution today.
My pleasure.
We formed in 2013 essentially because of something very tragic that happened in Dhaka in Bangladesh when the Rana Plaza factory collapsed and we lost over 1,000 people in one day. And this was a massive wake-up call around the world to say, look, that's one life too many and something needs to change. The working conditions of the people that were making our clothes just were not up to standard. They were complaining about it for some time and their voices were not heard. Essentially, on the day, I believe it was on the day that it happened, Carrie Summers had a light bulb moment and she said, I've got to create Fashion Revolution, and joined forces with Ursula and then founded Fashion Revolution. And so many years on, we're now an organisation that's spread into about 90 different countries, and we're just wanting a kinder fashion industry, a safer, fairer, cleaner fashion industry.
Yes, absolutely.
So there's a number of questions we ask, like who made my clothes and what's in my clothes and who made my fabric.
Yes.
But one of our campaigns, and this is the one I think that really sparked and connected with you, was Loved Clothes Last.
Yes.
So we would love to know, and a few questions came in for you, and I'm going to keep trying to bring Ursula in, but essentially one of the questions that was asked several times was, we'd love to know more about your relationship with fashion. Like, was there a moment growing up where you that you remember in terms of an inspirational moment in fashion? Who has inspired you? And perhaps when did your relationship with clothes and fashion begin?
Well, you know, I grew up in a home with essentially two movie stars. So there was always a lot of understanding or awareness of glam squads and getting ready for an evening and, you know, and both my parents are very fashionable even now. So, and by that I mean, it's not about the labels, it's never been about that for them, or it's about, you know, being an extension of, you know, personality. And for me, I think the moment that really captured my fancy was discovering fashion through music and through the musicians that I looked up to and the genres of music that I like. And I still stick to that, which is like very high school of me, but it's something that makes me feel connected to myself and my nostalgia. So I remember a moment, like I wear like black nail polish all the time now on my days off when I'm not acting. But I remember in Chennai at that particular point where I grew up, I couldn't find black nail polish. And I remember like painting my nails on with permanent markers.
Oh, gosh. I remember a few in school that did that too. So you're not the only one, that's for sure.
Yeah, but I think for me, it's always been connected with an extension of what I loved looking at and what that represented musically, emotionally. And I've stuck to it for all these years, really.
And so expression is a big part of it, I would say. And as a musician, I mean, you're one of India's biggest stars, not only in acting, but musically as well, profound musician. And what you wear and how you look and how you feel is all interconnected. So I guess my question to you is, how much pressure would you say there is on you to constantly, or consistent, is there pressure on you to constantly reinvent? And how do you approach that?
Yeah, the thing is though, I'm in a kind of a good situation because my image as an actor and the characters I play and is so far removed from how I am in person and how I dress and what my vibe is. So there's already like such an interesting polarity or confusing polarity, depends on how you look at it. And for me, I think reinvention is important, and I think, but I also feel getting too carried away by others' opinions of what is fashionable and what is trendy and what is in, it can just become very hard to keep up with on a very realistic level. So if you see even fashion icons, so to speak, they do what's new in the way that they do it, and I think that is the trick really to even reinvention.
Absolutely, I couldn't agree more. Okay, so look, Shruti, how do you feel about, and I'm just going to point out to Ursula, if you request to be in this chat, we're going to try it that way round.
It says it doesn't let me send a request.
Yeah, so every time we're inviting her in, it's not working. So Ursula, you request to be in this, and I'm going to accept straight away because a lot of people are requesting. So if you request to be in this, I'm going to bring you back in again. I couldn't think of two better people to be in this live right now. So enter the room, please, Ursula. Keep trying. Invite yourself in, and I shall accept. But I was going to ask you in terms of your approach to re-wearing your clothes. Shruti, how in this day and age, a lot of people are now celebrating publicly the number of wears, re-wearing their clothes. Once upon a time, it was frowned upon in the industry, let's say, and there was this celebration of potentially, one-time wearing or not being seen in the same dress. How do you approach that, and do we see you re-wearing your clothes?
I specifically wore this for you today. In fact, my friends make fun of it, saying, "Oh God, she's worn the mosquito net again," But part of you there? Yeah. Oh. I lost you for a second.
Sorry, I think we missed you for a moment. Okay, we're back again. So thank you for wearing that. Tell us the story behind that.
So it's like I love mixing things, and I think there is some, when you say loved clothes last, and you said that, I really think that if there's a piece, like it could be a pair of shoes or a piece of an accessory, they become a connection to like rooting yourself almost, to the last time you felt beautiful and confident in it. And as opposed to, because we can also get addicted to feeling good with new things, not just in clothing, but in life, I don't feel great now, a new car will make me feel better, a new boyfriend will make me feel better, or whatever, it could just keep on. So I think it's important to find nostalgia and things and root yourself in that. And it's no different with clothing. And I think a lot of things have changed in the fashion industry, especially since the pandemic, because we've understood that we're not the end-all be-all industry like entertainment or fashion. And I think we've been the hardest hit in a different way, in the sense that we're not essential really, and in a very brutal way, that's the reminder. And I think that especially in India and Indian fashion, what was really difficult was a lot of Indian fashion depends on karigars or embroidery craftsmen, and so much of that, everyone took a hit. And I think everyone started to understand the value of those pieces and of reusing and celebrating and recycling in a wonderful way. And I think for me now it's exciting. So for example, it's this or this piece that I've had for years really, and then I mix that with a new top and something else. Do you know what I mean? And
yeah,
I also love encouraging. I do love brands, but I've never been very brand conscious unless it's a piece that I say, oh, I'd love that, So I can count how many pieces I have, and everything else is really something that caught my fancy. And I love social media because I can see people making stuff themselves, and I really, really love that when people, it feels so old school and wonderful to me. So like this top is by someone called the Taylor Journal on Instagram, makes her own stuff. And I wanted to wear stuff today to show you that, you can put stuff together from good intention, and there's nothing more fashionable and cool than that.
That's super well said, and I couldn't agree more with that. So look, Loved Clothes Last is a concept that was developed into a book by Ursula de Castro, and she is the queen of mending, I call her.
I love that.
And although we're having technical difficulties with her today, I don't see why we don't have this as a global round of conversation at another stage. So if we don't get Ursula in now, we'll do a global round with multiple different countries and have you hopefully join us then. So let's consider this the start of a journey. And I'm delighted. Oh, she said she loves this, putting stuff together with good intentions. Exactly, Ursula. And Ursula used to have a brand called From Somewhere back in the day. This is when I met her in the UK. And everything has a story, she said. Everything is from somewhere. And they used to put it together, mend and rewear it and wear that with a badge of honor. And I think that's what Loved Clothes Last is all about. I mean, I'm wearing today my cloak, I call it, and it just trails down over my knees, and it doesn't matter what day I'm having, I celebrate the block printers that would have created and made this, and I can feel the emotion in my clothes. So I invest in pieces, and often, I mean I'm not a big buyer, but for me, what affected me massively was hearing about the waste that comes out of the fashion industry, not just the waste on the cutting floor of factories, but also the waste that is generated from consumers. The celebration of fast fashion and one-time wearing and not having that sort of respect for clothing that perhaps some generations did. And I was brought up in a household where we were taught how to make our clothes. I mean, I was brought up in the UK, and we used to make our Indian clothes because then there was nowhere to go to get them. So I understood the time it took to put a piece together, from buying the fabric to putting it together. And you just raised the point about garigars and in India, how there is that mending culture. How is there a message that you might have to the younger generation that's out there in terms of their relationship with their clothes, and perhaps to be more mindful, and how would you approach I think that
for me, like I said earlier, you know, fashion has been expression and clothing has been emotion. So I never got swept up or caught up in what I was supposed to own or what I was supposed to wear. And I love, if you start looking at them as stories rather than pieces you bought, or if you start looking at them as a connection to an emotion, if you just change that perspective, I think that makes a difference. But with all honesty, I feel that there was like these gap years in the middle, which was all about, you know, live your life like the red carpet, never repeat it, and all of that. And then now you see on Instagram, on social media, I love the amount of pages that I see, or little reels that I see of how can I wear this one shirt 5 different ways. And I love that, because I think that's come back into the culture, being innovative, because you want to be smart about how...
Oh, sorry, Shruti, we've got the co-founder of Fashion Revolution India just jumping in for a question.
Hi.
She's going to ask
you. Hey, hi. Hi, Shruti. This is Alia.
Hi, Alia.
Nice to meet you. Been such a lovely conversation. I mean, it's really nice to know that you know, you connect so deeply with your clothes, and I think it's amazing that you know, everybody here is getting a chance to listen to how to form that relationship. You know, because sometimes we have to be taught where to form the right relationships.
Yes.
So thank you so much for bringing that out so beautifully. I was just going to ask, I wanted to ask a question about, you know, as a consumer, in general, I know because, you know, you're an actress and you know how people like to criticize, you know, your fans have an opinion about you and how you should be living your life and what you should be looking like and things like that. I was just wondering if as a consumer, you know, you ever had that thought that, you know, I also have power over the brands that I'm buying from. And have you felt that relationship? And have you ever had, any sort of example of being surprised by what goes on behind a brand, or positive or negative, but just, learning about the brand and the brand story along with the clothes story that,
Thank you so much, Alia, for your question.
Wardrobe.
Yeah, that's really important, actually. I feel that, there was, there are expectations of how you should look or how you should appear. And I'm fine doing that for a character and doing that there, because that's my duty and my work, my professionalism. But when I'm off screen, I think it's really important to not. The one thing I find is, like, do you own a whatever Birkin bag or a, and you don't need to do that, at all. Number one. Number two is the good and the bad. So sometimes I'm really, really happy to see that, some brands that I like using sustainable fabrics, are supporting a community of craftsmen, or they're reviving prints. Especially in India, we have such a rich history of textile and embroidery and print and color and methods of dyeing. And so, I think that when I see that somebody's bringing that back, that's really emotional. And for me, the journey today is, especially being a South Indian girl, is so how do I mix that with my aesthetic and find that really happy place between my tradition and my version of what I represent as culture today. On the flip side of things, there are things I've learned about, for example, finding goth inspired fashion. We have a few go-to places, like Disturbia or Doll Skills or whatever. These are your fast fashion things, but a lot of us go there to buy a net top or something, or like a little chain like this. And when I found out that one of the founders of Doll Skills, the founder, was extremely racist and not, I was like, wait, let me not jump the gun. But I read into it and it was alarming, and the history of the kind of stuff. And I was like, I'm a brown girl and I don't want to stand for this, and I don't want to wear those clothes because they represent something. Because I, being someone who has been a face of brands, you have to be careful, or you have to be honest about what it is that you stand for. I don't want to be buying your clothes as a brown person knowing that you're racist. Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely. And I think, Shruti, something that a lot of people have noticed about you is that you are vocal, and if you don't believe in something, you will not stand for it and you will speak up. So you're not afraid of raising certain issues. And sometimes in fashion, we question, there are so many deep issues when it comes to livelihoods, and we're not going to go into all of that today. We've got Fair Trade India here in the audience today, and they do incredible work. So thank you, Fair Trade India, for joining in and being part of this session. And when it comes to being a fashion revolutionary, it's all about taking action and speaking up, being curious, asking something. And one of the things that we ask people to do is to ask the question, who made my clothes?
Yes.
And it's for that very reason, in terms of they came from somewhere. There were hands that made it, there were seeds that grew it, there were soil that may have nurtured it, and there's a whole journey that piece of clothing takes before it hangs in your wardrobe. And Ursula, who's in the audience now, she actually says the most sustainable piece of clothing that you can own is already in your wardrobe.
Yes, absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely. I think I love that, people are like, okay, this is sustainable fashion, but absolutely agree. I was like, yeah, but your whole wardrobe is sustainable fashion. You just keep reinventing it and using it and valuing it. And the other thing I'd love to bring up is I'm so happy with the awareness and options in for leather, for fur, which look incredible, but still give you these things that give you the aesthetic you love without compromising and without hurting someone or something. Exactly. Even in where your clothes come from, because we all know about sweatshops and some really scary ways in which we wear our really fancy bags and shoes and clothes, and it's so important to know where they came from.
Exactly. And there's also Fashion Open Studio, which is like a cousin or sister of Fashion Revolution. And Fashion Open Studios all about that. And I know that's really holds a special place in Ursula's heart. So Fashion Open Studio is all about encouraging that veil to be lifted from the dark side of fashion, and encouraging designers to be open and transparent, and you know, to push away that kind of secrecy, and also to celebrate those that are really committed to sustainability.
Yes.
Look, we've hit our 30-minute mark with you, and we could go on, and there's so much that I know the audience wants to ask. So I might just ask you one or two questions before we pick up from the audience. And meanwhile, Shruti, if you have questions for us, please do ask, and if I can answer them, I will. If not, we've got Ursula in the audience to do that for you.
I'd love to know how it is that the pandemic has helped in, you know, bringing more of this awareness to people, because I think people weren't even thinking anything could go wrong or anything needs to change before this. And so how has that helped to bring awareness to what all you guys are doing?
Great question. In India, I'm not sure if you were aware of the Be Vocal for Local campaign, and that was massive for the craft industry, and just the realization of the impact on our artisans all over India. But what we saw, and we had a series called Crafting Connections with the British Council, and we did a lot of work bringing together all these incredible, I say, masters of craft from around India that work with local communities, and really knew the crux and the depth of the issue. And we spoke to them, and we generated dialogues with them, and we asked them what more we could do. And it was all about informing, educating, and accessibility was a major part as well. So we were part of workshops and seeing how communities were coming together and working with a lot of rural communities around India to get them online so that their craft could be more accessible as well. So
that's beautiful.
But COVID-19 has definitely impacted. But look, one of the major topics, and I think this is the elephant in the room, the Pay Up campaign. I'm not sure how familiar you are, or the audience is, with the Pay Up campaign, but there were orders with major high street brands, major brands, not just high street, but major brands around the world, just did not pay the garment workers. Essentially, what happened was COVID happened, shops were shut down for a while, orders were stopped and stalled, but there were bills to be paid with the manufacturers. So the manufacturing industries felt that really hard, not just in India, not just in Bangladesh, but around the world. And they're major brands. I'm not going to name check them today, but you Google Pay Up, and you will see just the list of, and I call it criminal, in terms of not paying those people that help make those clothes. So there's there was a massive detrimental impact, but at the same time, on a local level, we also saw a lot of people come together to support the artisans.
That's amazing. Certainly
in India, but there's a lot more we can all do. And I wanted to just share a little fact with the audience that's here. And Shruti, I'm not sure if you're familiar with this one, but every second there is one garbage truckload of clothes waste, textiles waste, thrown into landfill. That's every second around the world, one garbage truckload of clothes just thrown away into landfill.
Fully stitched clothes.
Fully stitched clothes that can probably be reborn.
That's what, no, and not only that, I mean, there are people, you know, where you say, you know, doesn't even have a shirt for his back, like, why, well, that's...
It makes no sense, does it? But what I want everybody to, you know, we can talk about this till the end of time, but I think what we really need to do is ask for consumers to be more conscious, for everybody to take little actions. When you're thinking of buying something new, choose wisely. Like, think about fair trade, look for the mark, think about...
I think a lot of people don't even look at the label, like, where was it made? Or...
Right? And it's important to look at the label. If you do buy, we're not saying don't buy, we're not saying boycott, but we're saying if you do buy, snap that brand, take a picture of the garment, you can show your label, you can ask what's in my clothes, you can opt to buy perhaps fair trade, you can think about some sustainable brands, you can also ask them deeper questions about their brands. But we really want a more informed and conscious consumer, but more than that, we want greater governance. We also, there's no more Rana Plaza disasters in the world. We don't want fashion revolution to exist because we want a great fashion industry, so we don't have to be doing this. And we also want a more responsible retailer and manufacturer.
Yes, and I think the more the consumer starts asking these questions and you know, holding accountability to it, people, then it is bound to change. It's inevitable.
Absolutely. Look, Shruti, I've absolutely treasured you sharing us your fashion love story. You're wearing it so well. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
It's been a pleasure to have you.
It's such a pleasure. And we'll meet again where all three of us can chat, because I really missed chatting with Ursula today.
Yeah, you're going to have a great chat with Ursula. We'll do something globally and we'll get
yes,
not just India involved. We've got about 90 different countries out there. So let's continue this dialogue further. Thank you very much for being with us. Thank you, Ursula de Castro. Thank you, Shruti Hassan. You're incredible. Thank you, Fairtrade India. All the best, everybody, and have a great Fashion Revolution week.
Bye.
Bye-bye.